Welcome.
Yep.
Here we are. We think we've got everything set up correctly. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
How are things going for you, sir?
Good. I just got some ice. I didn't want to crunch it. Mm-hmm. Things are going well. It's been a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
Are you still, am I too close?
Yeah.
How do I know?
Just getting a lot of breath in there.
Oh. Have you, are you still grieving the Luka trade? You saw they played the other night. Did you watch that?
I did. I'm moving on. I think we all have to.
Because that game was pretty late.
Yeah.
I tried watching it.
I watched the highlights.
Yeah.
And you know what? Listen, people got to make their decisions.
Yep.
People got to do what they think is in their best interest.
Yes.
And ultimately, I think we can disagree about people's best interest, but it's really up to them, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Kind of out of your control.
Out of your control.
What is out of your control?
Most things.
Yeah. I think, and if I'm not mistaken, today is Aaron Barker, who we had on last year's birthday.
Okay.
Today as we're filming.
Shout out Aaron.
Shout out to Aaron.
How old is he?
I don't know. I don't know if you take his wisdom, maybe 74. But, what he would say is you can control three things, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
What are those?
That would be your attitude. Would be number one.
That's right.
You can go into any situation and your attitude is your choice.
Yes.
Your activities.
Okay.
Your activities.
Yes.
So what your attitude, your activities, and your schedule. Pretty much schedule, yeah.
Schedule.
So, and what I found, especially for me, my schedule and my activities or my actions aren't always aligned. So, what's on my calendar is not always played out.
What's happening?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So we got some work to do. And listen, this podcast is a place of growth for both of us.
yeah. Well, I like to plan in pencil, I would say.
Plan in pencil.
Yes. So if I have to erase.
Seems like you're letting yourself off the hook a little bit.
Well, procrastination,
Yeah.
that's probably the downfall of most of us men, procrastinating.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it gets into why I avoid doing certain things.
At least when my wife has a list for me,
Yeah,
I certainly find other things to do.
absolutely. So you wanted to talk about a book that we've both read.
Yes.
Okay.
A book that's really taking the internet by storm.
It's crazy because I read that book like
A couple of years ago.
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it just came out. Do you think it came out then?
But I think what it is that he's so good on camera that everybody
is he making his rounds?
Oh yeah, everybody wants to talk to him. So he's he's probably been on like 60 YouTube videos out there.
Gotcha. Okay.
The book we're talking about is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, former FBI hostage negotiator.
Yep.
I took a lot from the book.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, it's a good book. I think that any when you talk about negotiating, you talk about people with high intelligence or high emotional IQ, or some people call that EQ, right? Emotional quotient. Isn't that what intelligent is? And IQ is intelligent quotient?
Emotional. Yep, we're going to go with that.
All right. So I think that what it doesn't get into is the intent behind it or the character level behind it, right?
I agree.
So when you think of the tools that he gives in there, it can be my first thought is someone who's well versed in these tools is going to use it to manipulate other people to get a lopsided deal in their favor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it turns me off initially because I think that most decisions to be made where everybody wins. That's would be in an ideal world.
Yeah.
And so that's my first thought when somebody's big on, oh, we'll never split the difference. That means we're not going to compromise. I'm going to get my fair share, or I'm going to get the better end of this deal.
Right. And no, I think that's a great point. When you look at the techniques in the book, it's very easy to just look at these techniques as just, is this how you're going to manipulate people to just get a better shake, to get more of what you want, to dominate, to walk away and go, gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And I think but the book actually takes the angle of this is going to avoid you getting taken advantage of.
To a degree. And I think this book points you in one major direction, which is really the name of his company. He calls it Black Swan, something like that.
Okay.
But when you get into that part of the book, he says you're really looking for the black swan. So in the negotiation, and this is something that I've tried to adopt, but it's it can be hard because it almost feels like you're getting off course, but you're trying to uncover this unknown thing that would totally change the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Like if I want to sell you a bike and you want to buy the bike, you want to buy it for 50, I want to sell it for 100. The more we look for the black swan, at least with each other, it may come out that I don't have a helmet and I need a helmet too. And now see that it's not just about the price and the sell price. Now it's about, there's this other thing. And this other thing might mean a lot to you. It may not mean anything to me. I can throw it in. Now we're gonna have a better deal. So it's how do we uncover this unknown thing in this negotiation?
Sure. We've talked about that before. If we're talking about business specifically, if a vendor is coming to you or an employee is coming to you or a business partner's coming to you, usually what they're bringing to the table is not what's really festering or bothering them or their true intent, right? That's what I tell my most of my managers is like, hey, if they're coming to you about how much they're getting paid, 9 out of 10 times it's really not about how they're getting paid. Sometimes it is. Sometimes there is some, but usually it's because their happiness or the value does not equal what they're getting paid.
It could be a respect issue.
It could be a respect issue.
Yeah.
A lot of things. So let's start with this. Where do you find the most of your negotiating happening?
Every day, all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
If you start to label it and see it, it can be in a conversation that you don't even think is negotiating, but it is. There's negotiations with your spouse.
Yes.
There's negotiations with your kid.
Yes.
There's negotiations with your team members. There's negotiations with your vendors. There's negotiations. It's almost like that. I hate to sound so cynical, but it's that Peter Baelish line in Game of Thrones when he tells Stargirl, he tells her, fight your wars in the West, fight your wars in the East, fight your wars everywhere. He's trying to tell her, like, this is how politics works.
Sure.
That's very cynical. But when you're looking for, when you're recognizing what these conversations really are, many times they are negotiations. And again, I love how you started, because you started in a way that wasn't cynical, which is, what is your motivation to use these tactics? Are you coming from a genuine place of wanting to make things better? Are you looking to just be totally selfish? But realizing that a lot of our conversations are negotiation.
Yes.
And what I wonder is, as this book has become so popular now, some of these things, which we can get into all the different topics, some of the tactics are so particular, I think you're going to start running into them. And you're going to just easily go, yeah, great book, right? Yeah. That was a good book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly you're using the smooth radio DJ voice,
Well, I think that to me, I almost view this as the most important thing in negotiating is what you talked about, the black swan or whatever he was saying is we have to figure out, as leaders, we have to figure out what we're negotiating about. Because we could be, I could be showing up to a basketball game with a football. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of times I don't like to have, I'll even start off, hey, this is going to be a 2 or 3 conversation type deal here.
Oh, I like that.
We're not going to solve this right away.
I like that.
Because I can't gather my thoughts until I know exactly what your pain points are or what's important to you.
Right.
And so that's usually what I will start with was, hey, what's your goals? I start digging in what's really important to you. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to say, well, let me gather my thoughts and I'm going to come back to you with a really good proposal.
Yeah. And that's a good tactic because that helps you buy some time and maybe seek counsel and maybe do a little context.
Well, because how many times do we make an agreement and then like a day later we're like, oh crap, because here's my thing. Whenever I make an agreement with someone, I kind of say, hey, I want to make an agreement that is fair for both of us, that is scalable. Like, I don't want to have to keep coming back to this conversation. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, this works until I get to this point, and now I'm going to have to come back and have this again.
Yeah.
Right. And so I really don't want that to happen. So what's a scalable solution here? And
what that indicates to me, if you have to keep coming back to it, is that somebody's not satisfied.
Well, then the question is, will they ever be satisfied?
Maybe, right?
Maybe
not.
Maybe not.
But when you start with that idea of, hey, we want this negotiation, we want everybody to walk away feeling like they got something out of it. Mm-hmm. If you do have to revisit it over and over again, somebody's not happy. And then if that continues, they're just not going to want to play with you anymore.
Yep. Yeah. Well, a lot of times what I'll also do is talk about what it looks for everybody to win. And for that to happen, I have to identify who needs to win. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I might say, well, hey, look, I need to win. This provides for me and my family. Okay. If I have a business partner, they need to win. The customer needs to win, right? The customer needs to get a fair value for what they're buying or whatever they're purchasing. So we all have to be realistic because I can't raise the price on the customer. Yep. Then they're going to go somewhere else. And now I'm losing and they're losing, but you're making more money. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, but I understand you have financial stress and you've done everything in your power to fix that. And so I understand that you need to win in this area as well. So I kind of paint this picture because, what did they say? Most people, it's every scenario they're looking at what's in it for me.
Right. 100%.
Yep.
100%. And there, I think that there are people out there that's just totally 100% of their focus. And those tend to be people that I don't really, I don't know. Those don't seem like great long-term partners.
No. And, another thing I like to say in leadership is what reaches people keeps people. So if I'm negotiating and I'm just making the negotiation about the salary, right, I am coming back in 6 months and negotiating it again. Mm-hmm. Right. There has to be more than just a monetary negotiation. And I bring up monetary because usually when we're talking about employees or staffing and they come to us with an issue or they want to talk, hey, I need to talk to you this week. It's usually about that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then it gets back into his techniques. Let's dig into really what it is.
Yeah.
Right. And so do they feel valued? Did they talk to another team member that's making more than them? Mm-hmm. Right. That happens. Yeah.
And salary negotiation is a big one that he talks about in his book. Mm-hmm. And so he's arming lots of people out there with the ammo to go out there and get a better and bigger salary.
Yes.
And so, listen, and I would say to that is, hey, more power to everybody. I appreciate that. As a business owner, there are constraints, right? Like there are limits to what we can do for people. And I wish I could do so much more, right? I think our healthcare program, I can't stand it. I wish I could do better. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, right now we can't, and so there just are constraints. And so as you go into that negotiation, be aware that the other person might not have the magic wand.
Well, I think that's why I get back into educating how business works. Mm-hmm. They don't know. They just know, hey, I get paid for this to show up and do this job.
Right.
And so it's educating them. Hey, for a successful business to take place, all these parties have to win.
That's
So
right.
if I said, hey, yes, I'll meet what you're requesting, here's who loses in that situation.
Yeah. Or, perhaps the black swan is like, you know what, you've asked for this. We also need help over here.
Sure.
Would you be willing to provide help over here?
Sure. One of my biggest pet peeves is me getting a team member and putting a new initiative on their plate, and then their first response being, well, I wasn't hired to do that.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. Or that's not in what our agreement is to be paid.
Yeah.
And so...
And what's your response to that?
I put on my my AM DJ voice.
How am I supposed to do that?
My nighttime DJ voice. Which is my Adam Lytle. That's his normal voice. And so he's a very soothing talker. No, I mean, I just say, hey, look, our agreement for your compensation is to pay for your time in an investment into our company. Now, if you're getting paid for 40 hours a week and I'm asking you to do 50 hours a week, then yeah, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. But if it's inside the scope of the 40 hours a week that I'm paying for your time to invest in our company, anything's on the table.
Yeah.
And, you kind of want those employees, right, that are willing to do anything.
Well, you do. And I think when a situation like that comes up for me, I always want to see it happen for about 60 days to 90 days first. Mm. Even if it's something that's like, hey, this would be a bump for you, a salary bump. I want to see it for 60 days first, because I would hate to say, hey, let's go ahead and stamp this for you. Mm. And then 60 days later, I have to come back and say, it's not working.
Yeah.
And I need to, no one wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants
and I agree with that. So yeah. And that's one of the things Adam always says that I like is, your compensation is equal to the severity of the problems you're solving.
Well done. So responsibility is a similar.
Yeah. So if it's just the level of responsibility. Yeah. The more responsibility, the bigger the task the more people you're affecting, the more this means to the company, the role you're filling, the more you're going to get paid. Yeah. And and that's how people grow with the company, is by solving more problems. And if there is a fear that people should have, including us as owners, is that we don't want the company to outgrow us. Right. And if we're not growing, then it can happen quickly.
Absolutely. And sometimes in those moments where you add, let's say something relatively small to somebody's basket, and they're saying, hey, man, I'm going to need, an extra whatever. And back to that responsibility line is that, the scope of responsibility increased a little bit, but it's not like you took on, this whole department and now you're managing 10 people and you're responsible for their productivity. So I know exactly what you're saying when sometimes the idea is that, hey, you've added something to my basket, and the reality is it's fairly small, but the person who can accumulate several of those things and keep progressing forward and keep solving problems, as an owner, that's the person I want on my team. Yeah. The person that you're saying that you're like, keep a distance from is the person who, when you add that little increment to their basket, let's talk salary. Yeah. Let's talk money. Yeah. Because I don't know, it just seems to be two different spirits, but the first person who's constantly building, growing, learning, I find as a business owner, there's a lot of knocks out there about capitalism, but I want that person on my team, and I will do what it takes to keep them.
Sure. Yeah. I think a part of it on us is casting the vision, right? And so I like to bring people in. People want, I think it goes back to one of those businesses, Good to Great, maybe. Mm-hmm. He says, the two of the biggest questions you want answered is, does your employee have a friend at work? That's one of them. And I think the second one was, do they know how they are going to grow in the company? Like, do they know how to be in this company and to grow? Mm-hmm. And so I think part of that is that vision. And so what I like to do is say, hey, look, I'll use examples. Hey, so-and-so that's in our company. Well, they actually started answering the phones at the front desk. Yeah. Now look at the position they're in, and that's 4 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of paint this picture. You know, and then I always say, hey, that person never came to us and asked for a pay raise. Right? We kept giving them responsibilities. They kept knocking them out of the park, and we were glad to give them raises.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, again, I don't want to get too sort of meta in this conversation about the knocks on capitalism and how the greedy business owner is just looking to over optimize on his labor. Like basically the most value you can get for paying the least amount for somebody's labor is how you win as an owner. I don't find that to be true.
No.
Because I think it's so competitive. It's so competitive because if I don't keep my finger on the pulse of that, you as a fellow business owner in town, you can just hire them and they're gone, right? So there's a competitive balance between the two of us as business owners where, you know, again, if I've got somebody who's great, who's knocking out of the park, who's doing a great job, the onus is on me to keep them happy. Sure. Because if I don't, you're going to come around and say, hey, job going okay? You know,
are you happy at work?
You happy at work?
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, one thing leads to another, and now you've hired away.
I heard this rumor that people that work at that store
yeah, exactly. Now you're going to negotiation.
Yeah, exactly.
Mode.
Negotiation mode. Let me ask you this: on the list of kind of tactics that he gives, is there one that you think you do well?
Yeah, I think there's a few that come natural and a few that don't. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, he talks about tactical empathy, which is understanding their emotions and situations and then reflect it back. Even Clint talked about this in the last episode where when somebody kind of verbalizes an issue, he said, kind of go with them emotionally. And then at some point you got to talk truth. But basically what he is saying is that, you know, if I'm talking to you and I'm like, man, I got a real problem with so-and-so, you know, I can either look at you like you're a moron, or I can say, yeah, man, that would suck to be treated that way.
Yeah.
You know, tell me more about how that feels. And then at some point we're going to get to the place of, hey, let's talk about what
showing that empathy.
Is. Yes.
It's showing the empathy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, and sometimes where I get hung up on that is when, you know, if I perceive that person's just full of crap, you know, it's like, and so, yeah, that can be a weakness of mine. Not saying that I don't. I mean, it can be true, and they could feel that way. But at the same time, I was like thinking, well, you've caused this situation, and what you're complaining about that person is exactly what you do as well.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, so but is that helpful? Is that helpful?
Well, I don't verbalize it. I just think.
Right. Well, yeah, you certainly feel that with people where you're kind of like, dude, this is all you did this.
Yeah.
You did this, but at the same time, you know, that perception is reality.
Yeah, it doesn't minimize the stress they're going through.
Right.
And how they feel.
Right.
But then, you know, then I'm always like, kind of to me, it's like, well, how coachable is this person going to be?
Yeah.
Right. They're coming to me. They have a problem. They want me to help them solve this problem. You know, and I can, for some people, it doesn't matter how good of a solution I give or help them out or how good that session goes. They're not going to do a single thing we just talked about.
That's right.
Right. And so
I think something I'm not as good at would be this Ackerman model, which is the bargaining math, where he says you want to start at 65% of your target price, then move to 85%, then 95%, and finally it's just like this constant back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm not as good at that because I don't know. I guess I cringe a little bit just thinking about.
How do you? Here's another thing I think of too is how do you? My fear in that is keeping the negotiation going.
Well, if it's 65%,
if I want to start at 65%, but a competitor's offering on the table 75% or 80%, why would this person come back to me without me saying, "Hey, here I'm at 65%. Now there might be some more wiggle room. Don't go, don't do something crazy. Come back to me." Now you're just showing your cards,
right? And we were selling a house several years ago, and I wanted to sell the house, but I wasn't in a like. The other party didn't have really any leverage. I was just going to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And
they came up with one of these things. And I basically just wanted to, I just shut off.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that's a joke. Like make me, that's a joke. I don't want to deal with you. moving forward. If you're just coming with 65% of what the value
you got to be
is,
somewhat realistic to be taken serious.
Right. And I know that it's going to anchor that price down through that process. That process just feels like a waste of time.
Yeah, especially when they set it up. It's like, all right, listen, I'm gonna make you something strong. I'm gonna come in strong. Okay, I'm gonna make you bring you something real compelling.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ask for 65% of the value, like you said, that doesn't read to me as a trusted partner. That doesn't read to me as somebody that you want to constantly do business with. Every time we have something, I don't want you to come to me and offer me 65% of what the actual value is. Yeah, that seems a little crazy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that there's a lot of value, a lot of things to value, right? The obvious one would be I'm valuing your salary is just always easy to go right back to that. That's an easy example, but saying I'm going to pay you for 65% of the value of your time.
Yeah.
Right. But there's more to think about too, because what growth opportunities are there for this specific person, right? So then if there is some growth opportunities, then you might overpay somebody.
You're right.
Yep.
Right.
So opportunity cost is a big one. But yeah, that's a bargaining. I suck at bargaining.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, hey, I'm going to tell you what this value is to me. I'm going to make one offer and you take it or leave it.
Right.
That's kind of my thing.
To me, that's much more trustworthy. Yeah. And I feel like that would because if you say this to me, and we're haggling over this thing, not really haggling, but we're talking about it, and you say, hey man, this is what it's worth to me. If it doesn't do it for you, no big deal, no sweat. God bless you. Then the next time you come to me, we now I've got a kind of a mental model for how you're going to deal. Yeah. And I don't look at you as untrustworthy. Because you're just going to tell me what you're going to do. Yeah. And it's my choice to accept or reject. Now, I guess at the end of the day, I could come back and say, well, what about 5% more or something? Maybe you don't just leave it there. Yeah. But this 65% idea is just
I think
crazy.
that for me, it's, I think there's just there's some gut feeling to it. I think that for me, I know, so one of the things I love to do is buy things off of Facebook Marketplace. Okay. So I'm always on there looking at mainly music equipment, guitars, amps, stuff like that. And I just know in my mind before I even reach out to that person, this is what I will pay for this item. Yeah. So I just throw them an offer, and if they say no, I say, okay, thank you. Just walk away. Right. Like it's not it's not a deal breaker for me. I don't have to have this thing. Yeah. But I'm not going in, for a $2,000 guitar and offering them $1,100. Right.
Yeah. It just feels like an insult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not very good at that one.
Yes. Listening's a big tactic in negotiating. I'm always fast to kind of solve and not just listen. So it's not great for me. I think mirroring is a great technique. He talks about that. Mm-hmm. Repeating, now here's what I hear you're saying. Let me be clear what you're saying. And the voice one is very funny. That to me, you have the positive, playful voice, and then whenever it's time to get serious, you get the calm nighttime DJ voice. I do like the use of the word no. I like that part. Yeah. Giving them an opportunity to say no because it feels like they have more options.
Pretty quickly. Yeah. Yeah. I like that one. I like, he says that the 7-38-55 rule, 7% of communication is words, 38% is tone, and 55% is body language. So if you're just using that, then it would seem that negotiating in person is a much more valuable way to do it than like a text.
Yes.
Because again, you could go on a text and basically Facebook Messenger, right, where you're just sending a text off to say, hey, I'll give you $1,100 for this $2,000 guitar. But if you were sitting with somebody, you would have a much better chance of unlocking that black swan of, man, I've always wanted a Fender P bass. Like, man, I've got one sitting here. Let's just swap because this doesn't mean anything to me, and you really want this. You know? Yeah. You wouldn't get that at Facebook Marketplace, right?
No. You know, I've thrown in a few emotional things with my offer. You know, I might make up a blur a little about a story. You know, a memory. You know? Like, yeah, you know, my kids always wanted this. You know, and he plays in our church band, and you know, it would really be helpful for him. And, you know, and I might have seen that they're churchgoers on their Facebook profile.
My friend sent me a screenshot of an interaction on Marketplace where this guy who was, you know, clearly the Christian, I guess you'd say, a believer. And he sent him a text that said, the Lord told me I was going to find this guitar for this amount. And it was a stupid number. Yeah. And he was just laughing his head off. I was like, oh man, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And he said, would you go for it? And the guy just responded, no.
Yeah. Wow. He didn't want to be a part of the Lord's blessing.
That's right.
We see his spiritual level, his maturity.
Right. That's right.
That's funny stuff. Yeah, I think that I do like this book. You know, I mean, I think that I think there's negotiations. You know, I think when I think of negotiations, just because of the industry I'm in and who I'm dealing with, it's usually has to evolve around money, and I don't want to boil it down to that. Right. I mean, I'm negotiating. I have 4 kids. We negotiated this morning.
All the time.
One of them lost their iPad screen time for this afternoon. Right.
Yes.
And so, you know, we just negotiate nonstop. But I think that the true principle is, you know, very first off the bat, identifying what the winning solution is for both parties.
Right.
In their mind, this request, even as absurd as it is, what are they trying to win at by asking for that?
That's right. And if you think about it with your spouse, I mean, you know, we joke about the negotiation piece, but it is a real thing, right? Yeah. Like the ability for 2 people over a long period of time to have certain places of conflict and to be able to walk past those, both feeling like they were respected and valued, is really a big secret sauce for long-term commitment, right? Because, you know, your wife comes in and says, you know, hey, you know, why haven't you done this? Or
you mean you didn't start your marriage already knowing how to do that?
No.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I'm still working on it.
Yes.
But I recognize now how many of these things are, you know, negotiations. Like, you know, in our family, my wife has become sort of pressured into washing my clothes. Okay. She didn't do that in the beginning.
Okay.
And I think my mom and her mom were kind of pressuring her. She's not listening. It's fine. But, you know, so she comes back and says, look, will you just clean the toilets? If you'll clean the toilets every weekend, which I procrastinate on, then this will help me, you know, kind of take this on. And so, you know, that's one example, just one example where you're talking about household chores. How you split those.
I do think that there is one of the things with this book is a good reminder is there are areas to negotiate that we don't even see, right? It's just, it goes back to that phrase is just because it's normal doesn't mean it's necessary. And there are some things like, hey, you know, I do this and it just really bothers me. Let's discuss it. But you know, it's funny. My dad used to embarrass us so much because he would go to Walmart and negotiate. He'd be like, you know, if it was time to buy us new bikes, you know, he's like, well, you know, this one looks like this has been the display bike. Can I talk to your manager? He's like, hey, this says, you know, $75. You know, I'm really thinking $40 on this one.
So he was using the.
He would negotiate with Walmart, and I'm like, Dad, you know, Sam Walton's not here. We'd be so embarrassed.
I couldn't imagine in today's day and age walking in and negotiating.
Could you imagine
with a clerk at Walmart? You know, if you could find one. You know.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Johnson, I see these 2x4s. You know.
Oh, well, this happens all the time. Yeah, this happens all the time at our store. I mean, just the other day, this guy was looking at this piece of lawn furniture, and I was like, hey, man, you want me to just joking with you? You want me to load that up for you? He goes, you going to make me a hell of a deal? And I was like, let me see what I can do. You know, so it does happen all the time for us.
That's really funny. Did he buy it? No,
he did not.
It's still there.
He did not. But, you know, we made him a quote. We planted the seed. It was already $100 off. Okay. I can't do free delivery. Delivery, man, is so expensive.
Are you putting your spring stuff out?
Yeah. I mean, spring. We're there. This week is like, man, it feels amazing.
It feels great, doesn't it?
Feels amazing. So, last thing on never split the difference.
Yes.
We'll go back to number 1, which is negotiation is emotional, not rational. Emotional, not rational. And I think that's probably the best thing you can get, right?
I would say it's 2 things. It depends who's starting the negotiating.
Okay.
Right. Because I think that the goal is to try to make it as rational as possible. Right. There was a quote, and I can't remember who said it, but he said, and he was specifically talking about real estate, but I think it really goes to any purchases, is that we purchase emotionally and justify logically.
Yeah.
Right. And so we go in and say, oh, this is a beautiful house. I'm going to pay more than I said I was. But then we justify logically after we've purchased it. Well, it is going to save us on some gas. We're a little closer to the kids' school. It is going to, the AC system's newer, so our electricity bill should be a little lower, right? And that's just it really goes into all sales too, right? Even me talking about buying guitars. Do I need another guitar? And I can only play one at a time. I have like 15, right? But I can rationalize
why you need that.
Oh, I don't have that color.
Yeah.
Oh, that tone. I need that.
How many tones are you needing?
I need that in my arsenal for that one song. But it's true, and that's what it is, right? People come into your store, right? They come into your store, and it was funny because I was meeting with somebody the other day, and they said, they use a great analogy. I love some food analogies, right? And they said, hey, I'm the rotisserie chicken at the back of Sam's. Like, people don't go into Sam's. They go into Sam's to buy the rotisserie chicken, but it's at the back of the store. Sam's doesn't make money off of rotisserie chickens. But on the way to that rotisserie chicken, they're going to stop by and buy this and buy this and buy this.
That's right.
Right? Because we go in and then we're trying to justify all these purchases. We weren't even there to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's the loss leader.
Yes, the loss leader.
He's the loss leader. Okay, great.
Yeah, that'd be a good topic to go through too.
It would.
But no, I do like that emotionally and rationally, and you're 100% right. And
okay. Anything else you want to say about Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss?
No, I mean, I think it's a good book to read. I don't think it's the gospel for negotiating, but I do think that it does have some good stuff in there. And I think that it still just comes back to who you are as a person and your intent.
That's right.
I think that these are powerful tools that can be used in a very positive way and to make your culture better and to make your team better and your company better, or they could be used to, build up a lot of wealth and destroy your reputation and take advantage of a bunch of people, right? We don't want to be that. We don't want people to end a transaction with us and think they got taken advantage of.
Yeah, it makes me think about a couple things that you just said. Number one was, if you do jiu-jitsu training and you learn all the tactics and you're just the baddest dude on the block. Yeah. What for?
Well, who's gonna roll with you?
Well, who's going to roll with you? But what are you doing it for?
Sure.
Right? Are you going out there just to take people down on the street? Or are you doing it to protect your family?
Sure.
To what end? Mm-hmm. And then I heard another guy say the other day, he was speaking to this big company, and they were talking about how they spent $10,000 on this sales script, and they were so proud of it. Mm-hmm. It's like the sales script. He said, these are just words. Who are you? Before you go to the words or the tactics, who are you in the context of this situation? And think about that first. Who are you, your character? Who are you as a person before you roll out the almighty sales script? Yeah. Because if you get a call from somebody who's just scripting you, it.
Oh, yeah.
And you're annoyed.
Yeah. Right. Well, it even on negotiations. When someone's trying to use tactics on you.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can smell it a mile away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to give a shout out to
Sponsors.
Let's
do it.
Yeah. So we have 4 main sponsors this year. We have Priority Roofing, which they're going to be on our next episode.
Yes,
excited about that.
Yes, they are.
Locally owned, family ran business, residential, commercial roofings, repairs, replacements. They do literally every single job, a small leak or a full replacement. You can call them 318-202-2123. Visit their website, priorityroofingllc.com, or they're on all the social media platforms.
Yes.
All right. We have Plumber for Hire, locally owned plumbing company, specialized residential and commercial plumbing. They literally do everything. In the past few weeks, they've been fixing leaks underneath a faucet or digging up yards and replacing mains. They do it all. 318-709-9090 or plumberforhiresbc.com, and they'll get you scheduled and taken care of. Ivy's
Building Materials, locally owned since 1969, 3 locations, Halton, Blanchard, Mansfield, home center with a hardware store plus a pro lumberyard built into it. We are actually doing installed flooring now as well. So give us a call to talk about some installed flooring out of our Blanchard location. We're excited about that. That's a new thing that we're working
awesome.
on. Carpet as well.
Hardwood,
linoleum, vinyl click. A lady the other day was looking at vinyl click that looks like marble. I'd never seen this before.
Okay.
Never seen it before.
That's pretty cool.
That's right.
Clint Davis Counseling, they just opened up a location in Benton, Louisiana. I guess that'd be their 3rd location. So an office serving North Bossier. They're also in South Shreveport. They're also in Central Bossier, helping people make lasting internal change for external growth and success. They've helped so many people in our community with healing, restoration, and really just changing to a positive person to who God wants them to be. So ClintDavisCounseling.com, 318-562-6903. Hopefully that's not his cell phone. That'd be pretty funny if it was. Okay. Well,
right.
that's a wrap here. Never split the difference.
Never split the difference.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
See you.